really crazy, very sliver of a lining fanatics. There are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, and they inherit a remarkable 1,400-year history. And I just want to talk a little bit about some of the points that Professor Joyner Esposito, who edited the book Islam in Transition, Muslim Perspective, talks about the history of that magnitude of 1,400 years that became diluted by the beliefs, and that has kind of confused religion with cultural norms, like what the Taliban is doing. And then we use what the Taliban is doing because we see that on the media, and we kind of portray that in our everyday belief about Islam. So the word Islam actually means submission or peace, and it can be defined as one who finds peaceful submission of God. Who finds peace through submission of God, and that is the actual definition of that. The peaceful coexistence is a central tenet of Islam. And the word jihad, which has often been misunderstood, often means to strive or to internally struggle to overcome spiritual barriers. And I think that word has deliberately been misused by the Taliban in the past, because before that it was such an honor, a sense of honor to create jihad. When I was a teenager, I wanted to create jihad against some of the things that we had in our life, like not studying or listening to really loud music or arguing with my parents. So that was like a jihad that I had to go within myself to overcome those teenage years. So it can mean resisting temptation, fighting poverty, illiteracy, and in some instances it can mean, to be fair, actual engagement in arms. But out of the 6,236 verses in the Quran, less than 1% refer to warfare as a valid course of action. Now, if jihad does come in the form of war, it must be waged only in self-defense, liberty against oppression, and not be aggressive, but kind of seeking a resolution of peace. So, the Quran states that whosoever kills a human being except as a punishment for murder or spreading corruption in the land, it shall be like killing all of humanity. And whosoever saves a life saves the entire human race. So contrary to popular belief in Islam, education is compulsory on all Muslims, because I've often heard people come up to me and say, but you're a Muslim woman, how come you're educated? I thought women in Islam were not meant to be educated. And the Prophet of Islam used to say that seek knowledge, even if you have to travel as far as China to get that knowledge. Now, the Quran and the tenets of Islam say that envy is really a bad habit, and you should not be envy of anything. It's really frowned upon. Do not envy thy neighbor, do not envy somebody who is more than you, try to be happy with what you have. It's really frowned upon. But the Prophet said you can envy, but the position of only two people is enviable. And those are the only two people you can envy. A person who spreads his wealth in the way of charity, and a person who has knowledge that he teaches to others. So it is as important to educate girls as it is boys. So a lot of the times when we're going in there as American emissaries, we have to teach the local people that their culture is wrong, and that their religion tells them that they should educate the girls. Sometimes we have to make them realize that. For example, there was this one mullah who refused to let the girls go to school. He refused to let us build a school, and he was like 2 years again. So we had to do the jirga system, which is the tradition of sitting and drinking tea with the elders and arguing with them and debating with them and kind of, messing with their minds a little bit. So we showed them a video about our 3 Cups of Tea projects, and they were a little begrudging at first. And finally, it took actually around 15, 16 visits over a course of 2 years, and thousands of cups of tea, I can imagine, to have that local mullah say yes to us. And once we built that school, the guy who had protested against us, the guy who had raised his voices at the Friday mosque prayers against her, is the guy who's standing taking roster. And if any girl does not come to school because he loves the school so much, he will climb down the mountain, a little hill that the school is perched on top of, and go and knock on their door and say, why is your daughter not in school today? So it's really exciting that once people get used to the idea of community development models, what we can do. I have a lot to say, but I think we should try to switch to Q&A session now. I would just like to leave in the words of Nelson Mandela today and say that education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. Thank you.
about something like doing something like having sister schools?
You know, that's a really great idea, and that's one of our frequently asked questions, so that's a really great question. Problem is, in some of the schools, there's so little communication. Some of them are cut off from the rest of the world. They're on these high mountains, and there's not an excellent mail system, so we have a list of different organizations that do have existing pen pal schools, and so we at Central Asia Institute, I actually did research and I found schools in Pakistan and Afghanistan that do that, as well as organizations that are based out of here that can facilitate that knowledge. But what we have had in the past is, especially when Greg was less inundated with work when he went to Pakistan, was he would carry bags and bags of these letters. And some of these children would open up the cards and they would cry because it was the first present that they had ever gotten in their lives. So it really can be a powerful tool, so thank you for that.
Well, just the point is that our children here would learn more about the people in Pakistan, and maybe they would bring some of this home to their parents who might have a different attitude about the people in Pakistan.
Right.
And open their eyes to their children.
You know, our Pennies for Peace website, are you familiar with it? It's www.penniesforpeace.org. And if you click on the left-hand side, you'll see a bar there. It says Pennies for Peace Toolkit. If you click on the toolkit, you will get a really nice curriculum. You will get really nice videos that talk about the culture, the food, the dance, the rituals, the music. And that's a good way of interacting and seeing some of those things through videos.
I think the people here might be interested in knowing that the Pennies for Peace started, if I remember correctly, started in River Falls, Wisconsin.
Yes, it started in River Falls, Wisconsin at the School of Jardine, who is Greg Mortenson's mother. And those children in 1995 collected $623 in pennies, which are a lot of pennies. And at that time, they called the program Pennies for Pakistan. And then they were able to, come up with a really cool phrase, Pennies for Peace. But it was the children who started it, Greg always says. Because if it wasn't for the children giving him that initial money, he would never have been able to get the confidence to start fundraising and build a school that he first did, which you all read